All right, welcome everybody. You've made it to the end of this presentation, or sorry, end of the presentation, start of the presentation, the end of the conference. And so welcome to this last session. I feel honored for all those who chose to attend my session, the last session. For us and for me personally, I've done 3 of them, and this is my 3rd, and I'm personally very happy that this is my last one. It's been a crazy week. I hope you've learned a lot this week. I know I've learned some sitting in different sessions, and I'm happy to be with you today. I will be, of course, talking about chatbots, and very, very happy that you guys are all here with me today, and I can share kind of my perspective and what I've learned about chatbots. Okay, so I'm going to share my screen, and here we go. And let me go into presentation mode. All right, so welcome Chatbots session 100-500. I am Cameron McClurg from SpearMC. I am managing director out of Seattle office. I've been with SpearMC for 3 years. I have, prior to that, I was in many of your shoes, working within various clients as a full-time employee. I did PeopleSoft support for many years, and then did manage implementations and training and all of that, new rollouts, upgrades, etc. I expanded and started doing Hyperion and EPM, as well as some other systems, but PeopleSoft has always been kind of my bread and butter, my go-to. My first love, you could say. I've been working with it since 1998, and I'm just so pleased that through the mid-2000s, when Oracle said they were going to take over PeopleSoft and acquired them, and everybody said, oh, PeopleSoft's going away. I'm very, very pleased that 16 years later, it's as strong as ever, and this is a great example of how they're integrating the latest and greatest technology into this really robust platform of PeopleSoft. I'm just very happy to be still working with it. Now that I am on this side of the house with consulting, on this side of the fence, I should say, very happy that I get to work with many of you all in doing some of the stuff that I was doing earlier: support, implementations, upgrades, all of that type of thing. SpearMC is involved in a little bit of everything with PeopleSoft. That is really our main core of what we do. While many of our competitor firms have perhaps moved away or started to work with other applications, we decided to double down with PeopleSoft. We know that eventually people will potentially be moving off of PeopleSoft, but we know that right now there's tremendous value with PeopleSoft. Not only new implementations, we're doing those for people, but sort of converting traditional use of PeopleSoft into higher value use of PeopleSoft, whether that's going towards managed services or hosting on Oracle Cloud infrastructure, integrating emerging technology, which is what we're talking about today. Obviously, putting together training programs and providing training. All of that is sort of, we're trying to be a one-stop shop for all services for Oracle PeopleSoft. We have gone heavy on our integration with the Oracle Cloud, specifically Oracle Cloud infrastructure. And very pleased that earlier this year we were recognized by Gartner as a vendor, a representative vendor in the Oracle PeopleSoft professional services and managed services space. We're the only PeopleSoft firm dedicated to PeopleSoft that was recognized on that 2021 market guide, and we're very pleased about that. And it's a culmination of many years of investing in not just only PeopleSoft, but also Oracle Cloud infrastructure. Here we get to talk about chatbots, which is on that Oracle Cloud platform, and very happy to be talking about that today. And as I mentioned, very happy to be at the tail end of this conference. It's been a lot of presentations. You can see all of our presentations here. SpearMC was all over the place. If you didn't attend a SpearMC presentation, go back and check some of these out. We covered the gamut in terms of analytics, functional module sort of expertise, I did a session yesterday on the case for cloud infrastructure or cloud infrastructure. Today, of course, talking about chatbots. But we got a lot of good sessions out there. Go back and see if you can rewatch or come and let me know if you want to get slides or anything like that from any of these sessions. Really had our whole team was out there doing stuff, and we're very, very happy about that. Okay, so for today, we're talking about chatbots, but if we use more generic language, we're really talking about conversational interfaces. So what is a conversational interface? Well, let's first, before we talk about that, let's say, let's look at how many of these pictures do you recognize. If anybody knows that, that's a telegraph, and that was one of the first ways that somebody could communicate using some type of translation of their natural language into some kind of code that would be translated then to somebody else. And so it was one of the first ones. This was a product called IBM Shoebox that would try to interpret the words that the people were saying into some kind of digitized or computer sort of language. This was an interesting product from that was an MIT product called ELIZA that was an attempt at providing. It was really just a case study trying to build something out, but it was really trying to mimic almost like a therapist. And if you want to look at these slides and read what it's saying in this, it's kind of funny. It's saying, is something troubling you? And somebody types in mineral alike, and then it tries to mimic a question that might be asked. What's the connection? So it really didn't understand what was being asked, but it was kind of an attempt at moving that direction. You can see the evolution of what's going here. There's also, of course, pop culture with respect to conversational interfaces, and this is a graphic around the game called Oregon Trail, which seemed to have a lot of conclusions and dying, and so that was kind of the funny part of that pop culture reference. But it was this movement of and more sophistication of somebody trying to interface with using natural language and getting a response, both in with respect to just communication, therapy, games. So let's fast forward and let's talk about what a conversational interface really is. It's really an interface that for computers that tries to emulate a real conversation with a human. So instead of the human having to learn how to interact with the computer or the digital interface, the conversational interface tries to go the other way around and says that conversational interface tries to learn what the human is trying to intend. Okay, and so it's really a reversal of the roles, and so by doing that, what it's trying to do is there's a process that tries to interpret the intent of that natural language. So there's something called a natural language processor that happens in these conversational interfaces that tries to interpret and understand the language that's being used, and it tries to understand the intent of the user. That intent is then matched up with a dialogue flow. It's basically the algorithm that says, okay, I think this is what you want. I'm going to put you into this dialogue flow, and I'm hoping I'm right. And there's some process to say, am I right? Right? That if it says if there's a confirmation, am I right, with that dialogue flow, the user says yes, then it goes and retrieves that data information. It's still in a digital data format, but then there's a translation back into a conversational response, which then takes that back in, and it appears from the user's perspective as if they're having a real conversation in English or whatever language with this digital interface. And in reality, there's an algorithm happening, there's data retrieval, back-end database, et cetera, and a translation back into conversational interface, a conversational response. So what's the goal? Why are we doing these? Why is there a conversational interface? The idea here is to reduce friction. So if you think about a traditional sort of process, here we're looking at a process, let's say in an HR type of model where a user needs to enter sick time. And so the traditional model with PeopleSoft is they're going to need to log into PeopleSoft. They need to open the navigator, and that's been moved, right? So we had a menu on the left side. Now we have a navigator over on the right side, and some of that's now moving back towards tiles. So the navigation has moved around from the application. So the user needs to understand that, how to get to the right spot. by navigating to self-service, for example. They need to know they need to click on time reporting. They need to know that they need to go and submit a time request for absence. They need to select the option for the absence and then type in the date to and from, or from and to, and they need to submit it. And in the language of conversational interface, this is called friction, right? And this, of course, in the PeopleSoft language, and what you guys have probably dealt with for many years, and I did as well, is it requires a heavy amount of training. We need to train our users to understand our computer versus the other way around, where the computer needs to understand the users, okay? So lots of end user training needed. And if we really sort of expand this out to say, well, that's just one use case, but I want to really think about it more holistically and strategically here and say that beyond just somebody, a user, an employee going and entering their own sick time, you have in your organization groups of people that answer repetitive questions. And it could be they're a search provider, it could be in the financial space, they're a purchasing group, they're an accounting group, they're a budgeting group. In HR, this could be an HR help desk, it could be anybody that is there, and you have to staff for people to simply allow your users to ask questions, and some human is there to interpret that and then provide a response. So here's a typical example. An end user picks up the phone and says, I need help of some kind. They might ask a basic question. So the first thing is that the helper, the person that's hearing that, needs to understand the question, and the end user is really stuck with the quality of that person they're interacting with. And we've all done this. So we've all called, whether it's the bank or some service provider that you have to interact with. I had to call Walgreens the other day about getting a vaccine, and I had to make sure I picked the right answers to get to the right spot, and that was frustrating for me. That created friction, and I had to call a couple of times to get to. I just wanted to talk to somebody, right? So the helper finally, when I was able to talk to somebody, they have to then open PeopleSoft and navigate to the right spot. They have to ask for required information like an employee ID, a user ID, etc. They have to authenticate that person. The helper then responds with the answer, and if they're not right, they got to start the process over again. And then user sits there and says, geez, there's got to be a better way. This caused me a lot of friction. And generally, this is really considered poor customer service. And not only are your end users somewhat dissatisfied with this, but you are also paying for somebody to sit there and answer those questions. So you're paying kind of in two ways. And that obviously is something that we can improve with a conversational interface. Okay, so kind of stepping back and thinking about conversational interfaces, we have a significant changing of a demographic in our workforce. The workforce, while certainly the top end is some people are getting older and retiring later, there's this influx of younger workforce. In fact, within the decade, millennials and Gen Z will make up 1/3 of the workforce. That's a huge number, or sorry, it already makes up 1/3. And by the end of the decade, it's going to make up almost 50% of the workforce. This is a huge number. We need to understand that we're not building these systems for the people that are close to retiring. We really need to be thinking about building them for the younger generation who's coming in, not only accepting functioning conversational interfaces, they're actually going to expect them. They're really becoming ubiquitous across all of our walks of life. And really, we need to get ahead of it and make sure that we're providing that to our users, our employees, our students, who are not only going to accept them, but really expect them. Okay, so let's talk about what PeopleSoft and Oracle is doing in this space with PeopleSoft Chatbots. So if you've heard anything about the last month, if you're on the PeopleSoft info page, etc., you've heard a little bit about this Picasso. It's a PeopleSoft intelligent chat assistant from Oracle. It's a one-stop shop that allows a user to interact with one chatbot that can take them to all these different areas like benefits and payroll and absence requests, but also expense inquiry and requisitions. So if you'll notice with that, you've got 4 from the HR pillar, and you've got 2 from the financials pillar. And so the really great thing, and this isn't a conversation about unified navigation, but happy to talk to you about that as a separate process. But if you have both HR and financials, or let's say you have HR and campus solutions, you can bring those together in a unified navigation, a one-stop shop. And this Picasso chatbot, a digital assistant, can really bridge the gap between those two things and create a really nice seamless process for your self-service. So it's either employees, it could be managers. If you think about a manager in your organization, they may be doing expenses, a proven expense. They may be reviewing requisitions, but they also might be managing, of course, they're managing their employees too. Whether they just need information about the employee, they need to support absence requests, improving of absence requests. All of that can be one-stop shop within one interface now with Picasso. So here's a quick view of it. So here I'm in the expenses module on the financial side. And you'll notice this little icon down here at the bottom, this dot, 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 looks like a conversation. If I click on it, it's going to pop up the PeopleSoft Picasso chatbot. And in that, I've already sort of selected, I want to understand something about my pay. And so it understands that intention from the user, and it's going to start showing them some pay information. Okay, so one-stop shop. And if I wanted to move from payroll to understanding maybe something with absences, or maybe where's my monitor that I ordered a week ago, all that can happen now within one stop shop with this Picasso. You'll notice here that once you open it up, you can see all these different pieces. I think these images are out of order. So Picasso thing, you come in here, you get access to all these different chats, the chatbots, the skills. Once you click on one, let's say the payroll, then you get into the payroll information. So I'm sorry, those two images are a little out of order. But you see how seamless it is. And this was just announced earlier this month. Prior to that, you had individual chatbots, and you can still deploy them that way too if you wanted to have just a chatbot for benefits or just a chatbot for absence. We would highly recommend, leveraging the centralized PeopleSoft Picasso assistant, but it is possible to do them one by one as well. There's also a couple more: global payroll and recruiting, and I've got a couple slides at the end talking about the future roadmap. They are going to be delivering more and more of these chatbots. And you will also see an increase in the sophistication of each individual chatbot, being able to do more, provide more value to the users. And I do have some demos later on of actually some chatbots in action. I'll show you how those are going to work. So let's take a step back. What are the requirements to deploy chatbots? So the key is having that digital assistant, and that is a platform service. I'll talk about that a little bit more on the next couple of slides. But it's a cloud-based subscription to the Oracle platform, and that is going to provide that natural language processing and all the code and logic and algorithm to understand the intent and take you to the right spot and all that kind of stuff. You do need 857.07 or higher for People Tools, and there is a minimum level with the images on the functional, the PUM side, and that's due to the fact of some things that it brings for you in terms of the framework that allows you to connect to these chatbots. So I'm going to talk about that in a second. They also rolled out text messaging, so that's also available. So for that, you need a Twilio account, and for any of you that you have expenses, you might already have been using Twilio to interact with PeopleSoft. So they're leveraging that as well for a chatbot as a use case as well. For that, same thing, same People Tools. You need an additional level of your PUM, and you can see instead of a lower level of some of these PUM images, you need a more current level, so 35, 37, etc. So again, great possibility of now people using their phone to interact just through text messaging. I am going to show you a demo of using my phone just to log into PeopleSoft without the text messaging. I can do that and use the chatbot on my phone as well. I have a demo of that. Okay. So as part of this, there's basically three components to the chatbot integration framework. It's part of 857 and beyond. Oracle is delivering three main components. One is configuration updates for PeopleSoft itself. The second is basically installations for your web server. And then the third piece is skills that would be imported from Oracle Digital Assistant. I'll talk about each one of these. So on the PeopleSoft side, what you're going to have is these app services. So both core app services that are reusable components for all your chatbots, whether that's security, authentication, et cetera. But then there's specific app services that relate to a specific chatbot. So for example, how to navigate to getting an extraction of absence information or requisition data. Those are app services that are specifically built and delivered to you to make sure you don't have to go and figure out how to go pull this information out. Now, I'm going to talk later on about how you can build your own chatbots, and in that case, you need to understand how to build app services to go and get that information out of the database. But but you don't have to do it for the delivered chatbots. You can just simply use the app services that are being delivered to you in those PUM images that I mentioned earlier. And you can just hook up to those, and it's very, very, very easy to do. There are some setup pages as well with respect to the chatbots. That's in your enterprise components. And then, of course, the chat client, which is those the little ... feature or ability to pop up onto your as a modal window to actually connect to that chat client. So here we can see a little picture of app services. If you go in there right now, whether you use chatbots or not, you can see these app services. So here I'm highlighting one that is related to getting employee balances. So if you get in there, you can kind of deconstruct it a little bit. But if you, of course, we offer some training on how to do app services and all that kind of stuff. But if you're familiar with some of that, those app services that pull information out or do some specific things to that app class, this is sort of how this works. All front end, you can understand it, you can build your own, you can deconstruct the ones that come delivered for you, and they're just going to be right there in your app services. Second, on your web server, your PeopleSoft web server, there's going to be a web SDK that Oracle delivers to you. You install it, and that is required then to have that chat client be able to process and open up as a window on your PeopleSoft environment. And by the way, I do have some information in the appendix on how to do all this setup. It's not completely comprehensive, but it kind of gives you some overview of how to do it. I will explain later on how we are offering some classes as well on this stuff if you're interested in taking it a little bit further. So Oracle Digital Assistant is the third pillar or third leg of this stool. And in there, they offer skills, which are really just another term for a chatbot. So one skill equals a chatbot. And we're going to go look at that here in a second. The skill template then is also delivered as a means for you to create your own chatbots. And so that template is sort of sitting there ready for you to fill out and to leverage. That's going to require some additional development skills and that sort of thing, but we'll talk about that in a second. Okay, so let's kind of look at Oracle Digital Assistant a little bit closer. So what is it? It's the platform that exists on the Oracle Cloud that you can leverage, whether you are putting your PeopleSoft on Oracle Cloud or not, Oracle Cloud Infrastructure or not. You can use the Digital Assistant and you can hook it up to your PeopleSoft environment. That Oracle Digital Assistant is the natural language processor. That's that engine that understands what people are intending, the users are intending. It creates dialogue flows and gets you into an algorithm that pushes you into certain spots, trying to interpret what you want and give you the information that you're looking for. All of that's built within the Oracle Digital Assistant, and specifically in what's called the Skill Store. The Skill Store is, you can go in there, and if you type in PeopleSoft, you'll see all the delivered skills that exist for PeopleSoft. Now you do have to purchase this digital assistant, and I actually have some numbers later on for you to kind of have some understanding of how much this costs. But once you kind of hook up that digital assistant, these skills are essentially free. Now, of course, you have to pay for digital assistant, but once you pay for it, all of these skills are available for you to use and to integrate into your PeopleSoft framework. So these are all pre-built templates. They're based on a platform version of Oracle Digital Assistant. And the specific skill is delivered in a PUM image. So you can see here in the screenshot how benefits is based on a 38, You've got ePro Requester based on 39, etc. And so each of them are available for you once the new image comes out. So the 39, 40, 41, these can be updated with additional information, which is an update to the skill here in the skill store, as well as updates on the image in PeopleSoft with all the app services, etc. So as it evolves and wants to do more for you, all of that will be updated as we go with future PUM images. You can take these skills that are in the skill store, you can clone them if you want to do your own, but you can also then just extend them to yourself and say, I want to take this, I want to basically pull this into my PeopleSoft world, my PeopleSoft instance, and I want to then use it for my purposes. Here you can see once I click on that for the PeopleSoft Absence Assistant, you can see that I can view it, I can extend it, so I'm using it, I can clone it to have it my own, a SpearMC or customer specific Absence Assistant bot. But really the idea here is if you extend it to yourself, you will then be able to then keep up with the updates. If I clone it, I won't. If I clone it, it's a clone of that at that very moment. It's kind of like taking, let's say, an app engine or a page in PeopleSoft and saying, I'm going to copy this and use it for my own purposes. And then as PeopleSoft delivers updates to that underlying page or to the underlying app engine, you're not getting them and you have to reincorporate them manually. This is a improvement on that concept. By instead of cloning, you can extend it. And so by extending these skills, you can incorporate your own modifications, and you can rebase and pull in any updates that come in the future. So it's an improvement over where they were at a year ago with these skills. These skills were just basically there for you to copy or use, but anytime you made changes, it would just be overwritten when new updates would come in. The ability to extend is now a key feature that's available now for you. So each one of these skills in Oracle Digital Assistant become a chatbot in the PeopleSoft. You'll notice that there's also then a PeopleSoft, actually I don't have a screenshot here, but there's a PeopleSoft Picasso one, which is actually a digital assistant under the digital assistant menu, and you can then bring that in, which then pulls in all the other chatbots as I mentioned in that previous slide. Okay, so here let's dive into one specific skill. Here's an absence assistant skill. And you'll notice that we've got things like the intent saying you've got absence balance, cancel the balance. What's the future balance? I want to request an absence. Those are all of my intents. And in order to get into the right intents, you have what's called an utterance. Okay, and I'm going to show that in a second. I actually have a demo of that. Once that happens, you have this flow. This is where the real power comes in, the real logic of it. If you want to say, well, how does this all work? There's a lot of code that exists, and this is you can read it all in the flow editor, and you have to be really a developer to really build on that, write your own, modify it. So I wouldn't say a functional users or a BA could actually come in here and do it, but certainly a technically savvy BA can come in here and look at this and interpret what's happening here in this flow and use it to your advantage. I'm going to show you an example of that here in a second by understanding where it's pulling, for example, the messaging in PeopleSoft. It's pulling that in this code, and I can see where that is. And if I can see it in PeopleSoft, I can change it, right? I'm going to show you that here in a second. So you got ODA and you got PeopleSoft, and people say, what's in ODA, what's in PeopleSoft? So this is a quick graphic to show you what's in ODA, what's in PeopleSoft. The ODA is the natural language processor. ODA will create and maintain a channel from that from PeopleSoft into ODA and back, and that channel sort of creates that two-way communication. ODA handles the conversational logic, which is that dialogue, which is that the intent and the entities and the dialogue flow. Dialogue flow is sort of the how things are supposed to move and go through that algorithm. And then, of course, that connectivity back into PeopleSoft. On the PeopleSoft side, you've got, of course, the source data. So there's no source data actually being stored in ODA. All that source data, all your absence balances, the transaction of requesting absences or looking up information, all that source data is in PeopleSoft. The underlying application logic of how to pull that out, that's what we talked about in those app services, that's in PeopleSoft. The user interface for interacting with the chatbot, that's on the PeopleSoft side. And while the dialogue flow and the logic of that algorithm happens on ODA, the messages that are displayed in that chatbot actually stored in PeopleSoft using the message set logic that manages any number of messaging within PeopleSoft. And again, I have a picture, a demo of that here in a minute. So let's get to some demos and take a look at a few of these items. So the first one, and this demo is from before Picasso existed. So this was from last year. So I apologize. Picasso is an improvement on this, but you can still see the concepts of how these are going to work. So I'm going to go ahead and click on this and get this going. Hold on one second. Make sure I'm on the right one here. Okay, so the user is going to click on the absence assistant. And again, it's improved by now having Picasso. So this one's specific to absence, but Picasso would allow you to go in and then come at from different angles. So users clicked on hello, and the first thing to notice is that it is responding with a personalized greeting to that person. And again, that's not stored in ODA. It's using logic to pull from PeopleSoft. So it knows who the user is. In this case, it's John Patterson. You'll notice that there's a specific messaging back to say, if anything goes wrong here, contact a real person and you call this number or email our HR support line. That's all personalized through the message, which I'll show you how to do that in a second. But the point is that it's personalized for the individual, and it creates a better experience for that person to understand. Okay, and then I would just say also from a best practice perspective, you want to consider that the chatbots are, and it's kind of like my example with Walgreens, where I had to call a couple of times and pick the magic sequence of buttons to get to talk to somebody. You don't want that experience, because that has automated and digitized the conversational interface, but it still created friction and a bad customer experience for me as a customer of Walgreens. And sorry for any of you that I hope none of you work for Walgreens or have loved ones working for Walgreens. Walgreens is a wonderful place. I got my vaccine the other day, very happy. But here, my point is, with you as an organization trying to roll this out, you want to make sure users have a good experience. So while many people will prefer this interface, putting in a message saying, hey, if anything goes wrong here, if you're not getting what you need, call us at this number. That's a great way to say, hey, we're trying to leverage technology. We're trying to give you a better experience, but we are here as a backbone. We have a real person as a backbone for this, and we will help you if needed. That's a good way to increase adoption, certainly increase user satisfaction. Okay, so let me go back into my demo here. So I'm a user. I've said I need help. It's personalized a message back to me. I've said, if anything goes wrong, okay, great. I know I can do that if anything goes wrong. I've clicked on my view of absences and immediately presented with all of the absences for me that I've submitted so far. And you can see each of these. I can look at one specifically, like this one. There's 40 hours that was submitted and in the system right now. It's in submitted status, and I'm looking at that, and I can say, you know what? Actually, I'm not going to take that vacation. I want to cancel it. So it's going to say, okay, well, which one do you want to cancel? And I'm going to select the one I want to cancel. I'm clicking on cancel, and it now takes me in. Again, now I'm in that dialogue flow. That algorithm says, okay, now I know what you want to do, and now I'm going to take you down this path, right? So what's your reason? Do you want to provide comments for this? No, I don't want to provide any comments. Okay, fine. Are you ready to go? You want to proceed with this? You want to confirm this, right? I say yes, great. The initialization of that request is in there. Please wait. Okay, boom, it's done. You're canceled. I haven't had to interact with any person. I've gotten exactly what I needed. It's all in an automated fashion. Okay. All right, so let's take a look at another one here. So I want to kind of build on, so we've got that as a foundational element. I can say hello, I can get that response back, right? In this case, I'm going to, I think this is the same one again. Let me see, I think I have to click on this. Yeah, my apologies. Let me go on to the next one. I think I had that in there, that video in there twice. Okay, so I'm going to try this again, and this time I'm going to try something different. I say I want time off. Again, I'm using natural language. I want time off at Christmas. Now it's interpreting that with the language that I used to say, okay, I think this person wants time off, So I'm getting it into that intent, and I'm now going to then process using these questions. When does your absence begin? When does it end? What's the reason, right? I'm clicking all these things. Do you want to do partial? No. What's the reason? Well, I just want time off. Would you like to provide comments? No, I don't want to provide comments. Okay, here you go. Here's your request, okay? So in this case, it's interpreted something a little bit more complicated for me to say just from clicking on what I want to do. It's actually interpreting my language, saying, I want time off. Okay, I understand that. The digitization of that, the intent says, I think that you want to request absence, which is the PeopleSoft language for what you're actually trying to do. You're trying to request an absence, but it's interpreting the language of the person. So instead of the person learning the system is using this algorithm to learn what the person is actually intending. Okay, so here I'm going to play this one for you. This one is actually on my phone. I did this demo about, I think it was a little bit less than a year ago, so you're going to see kind of some old dates on this. But I'm going to play this. I don't know if the sound's going to come through. If not, I'll just tell you what I'm saying. But I'm actually using my phone to not type anything in with my fingers. I'm going to speak into my phone because, again, as long as the phone can interpret my words and put that into text, it's all that conversion, that translation of my intent through the conversational interface into, in this case, text. Text goes in the chatbot. Chatbot interprets that, moves it across into the database, pulls information, brings it all back. All I'm doing as a user is I'm speaking into my phone. Let me see if I can do this one. This one's kind of a funny one. I've kind of joked around. My boss's name is Marcus. Okay, so for all of you, and so what I'm going to do here is I'm on my phone. I'm opening up my PeopleSoft. I'm using my pre-built thing with my Touch ID to log into PeopleSoft. So I've got that security on there. I'm logging into PeopleSoft, and you'll see the same interface that I was just in, which is just obviously coming into this absence assistant. And here I can see the absence assistant pops up on my screen on my phone.
Marcus is killing me.
And there you go. I just said Marcus is killing me. Let's just talk to that into my phone. And I've already basically told it behind the scenes that if the word Marcus, being my boss, is mentioned, it means the person wants time off. Okay, and so I just told it I want time off today, and then it says, okay, great. When does your absence end?
1 month from now.
And I said 1 month from now. Notice I didn't say May 25th or whatever. I said 1 month from now, and it interpreted that correctly by grabbing the right date. So it interpreted 1 month from now into an actual date. Here I'm going through the same sort of things to click with my finger on the ones I want. I could have used my voice to respond to these things if I wanted to. And here we got the actual request. To confirm, you requested vacation from today, May 20th, May 22nd to June 22nd for a duration of 168 hours. Are you sure you want to proceed? So I'm showing a couple things here. One, I can use my phone to get into PeopleSoft, which is great if you didn't know that. Of course, you can do that with the fluid interface. It's very easy to use. I can use my keyboard, or I can use my voice on my phone to take that conversation, my natural language, into the application, into the chatbot. It takes that into text. That text is processed into the chatbot, and with just a couple of words, it has come back to me with this request. And all I got to click on is yes, I'm done. It's very, very easy to do, and that's created a good situation for me as a user. I'm very pleased with that. I'm very providing me customer satisfaction. And by the way, nobody on the back end had to process that on through an administrative function. And that's really the key here to all of this is the elimination or reduction of need from an administration perspective. All right, I want to show you one more on the financial side now. So we're no longer on the HR side. Here we've got one. Oops, let me click on that. This is a short one just to show the requester bot on the requester. Again, this is part of Picasso. Right now, this is an old video that shows it when it's a standalone bot, but as a Picasso, you can just open up Picasso and just get access to any of these bots by telling you want to look up a requisition. Here, I'm going to tell it that I want to look up a monitor, and it's saying, okay, these 3 monitors were submitted by you as a requisitioner. I'm clicking on the one I want more information on. Here, I see that the expected delivery date is a specific date. Okay, and I'm going to say, okay, great, thank you very much. I got what I needed. I'm done. So again, that's a requester bot. There's also an expenses bot. There's all these different features that are listed if you want to look that up. There's I have that. I don't think I have that in my my slide deck, but there's a lot of different options within each one of these bots, things that it can do, and it's growing all the time with the additional POM images. Okay, here I want to show you what happens kind of behind the scenes here. So here I'm back to that absence bot, and I'm going to tell it something that it doesn't understand. Okay, so I'm going to type in, I want to get away, I think is what I type in. I think that's or sorry, I say need time off or need help. Okay, and you'll notice this says, okay, let me stop this. It says, I don't understand what you're asking. Okay, I don't understand what your input. And so it automatically defaults to saying, here's the things that I can do. So if you're going to roll out chatbots, you need to be monitoring these things where it doesn't understand what the user is looking for. And you need to update that behind the scenes. So I'm going to show you how to do that. So I said I need help. The bot didn't understand that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go open up my ODA. Here I'm in this specific chatbot called Absence Assistant. I'm going to go into that. I'm going to find the entry greeting. That's the intent, the entry greeting. And I'm going to add help as an utterance to this entity or to this intent. So I've just added the word help, that I said that anytime a user says help, I'm going to interpret that as an entry greeting. Okay. So I've added help. You can see it there in the list of utterances. And so I've just added it right there. I'm going to move back to PeopleSoft and I'm going to type it again. And I'm going to see now a different response from the chatbot. I'm going to type in help, and automatically, just like that, the bot now understands that you're just trying to say hello, and it's going to say, what can I help you with, right? So now I've just improved by just putting in one word into that utterance. I've improved the experience for the user. Okay, here, let me do it again. Here I'm going to say, I want to get away. All right, and this is obviously slang. It's poor grammar. It's not even spelled correctly. But I can go grab that, and if I wanted to be creative, I could grab that. I could monitor this over time, and I can say, well, if somebody says I want to get away, they're looking for requests for absence. So here I'm going to go down there. I'm going to add the two things: get away. I'm going to click on enter. That's going to enter that, and I think I put also get space away, meaning I want to add that to my list of utterances. If somebody says that, what they really mean is they want to request an absence. So instead of making people, again, instead of making people understand what the language of the computer, the Oracle Digital Assistant here is going to learn the language of the users. Here I'm going to now type it in. I want to get away. And you'll notice then now it automatically, boom, it already says, boom, okay, when does your absence begin? I understand now what you really mean when you say that, I want to get away. So very easy to kind of show how easy it is to update these utterances in order to learn what the users are actually intending. Okay, so here I've got this little picture of adding the utterance into the skill. And again, if I extend one from PeopleSoft or from Oracle Digital Assistant, I can add these utterances, and then I can rebase later on and keep my updates in with any changes that come in from future updates. Okay, so here I mentioned before that the messaging that you get that shows up there can actually be handled through message sets. So here I'm looking at the dialog flow of the Absence Assistant chatbot, and I'm simply going to do a search for the entry greeting, because I know that's the entity. The entry greeting is the entity that the intent that I want to get access to. So I've found that in the code. It's row 1858 of the code, and I can see that the message catalog and the message set is 17448 and 152. So I know where this is coming from now in the message catalog and message set. So I simply open up PeopleSoft, I go into that message set, message number, and I can modify that through configuration, no customization here. I can modify that message to now be the message I want. You'll notice that it's replacing the name, that hello %1, that's replacing the name of the person with John Patterson in that case. and then has this rest of this language to say, hey, if there's anything that goes wrong, please contact this or that. That's where you can add that your own personal language to for your organization to really make this work for you. And in doing so, you can really build out some really complex help files for this. You can allow people to get access to all that help information that is currently buried on some server, or maybe it's on a web page, an internet page, and they have to search for it. You can bring that forward with a chatbot to then provide those messages out to people. Okay, so wrapping up here. So you can build your own. So you do have all these delivered skills and chatbots that are really fantastic that you get to clone or extend for your own purposes. But you do have the ability to pull the skill template, which is out there in the skill store. You can pull that for yourself, and then you can build your own. And this allows you for basically to connect back in using that chatbot framework back into PeopleSoft. Again, you're going to need some skills for this. So you're going to set up by creating those app services in PeopleSoft. There's a 5-step process that's listed in PeopleBooks that you can follow and build your app services. You're going to pull the skill template from the ODA, and you're going to then manually add in the intents, utterances, dialogue flow, and you're going to train the skill. Those are the steps you're going to take. You're going to say right now, you're going to say, well, how would I know how to do all that stuff? Well, there's lots of help files. I will also point out that we do offer training in all this too, and I'll mention that again here in a second with some of the offerings that we are helping people with. You're not going to tackle this if you're not technical, right? So you need to understand if you're a developer and you want to try and tackle this, you can do that. You need to have an understanding of how ODA works, how that's connected to your PeopleSoft. That connection, there's some one-time work to make the connection between your ODA framework and your PeopleSoft framework. So there's one-time integration of that, and then there's the pull of those specific chatbots and bringing those chatbots into PeopleSoft. So you're going to need to understand app services. You're going to need to understand how to build skills and development skills. And here's my recommendation: go and figure it out by looking at what's in there and deconstructing as much as you can. And then, of course, all of that code built in JavaScript. It does obviously become a requirement that you understand how to write in JavaScript. So again, not something a BA is going to do, not something that you're going to have a casual user. This is going to be a development skill. Of course, you can leverage outside resources like us to help you with that type of thing. But it is a framework that you can learn and build on your own. Lifecycle management. I talked about this before. Here's a little screenshot about how these app services are going to be released via PI, the PI releases. So as the POM image comes in, there will be updates to app services, and you will be able to then come into the skill and simply rebase to get the latest updates to not only the app services on the one side, but also the skill on the ODA side. Once you have those extended, of course, you have the ability to rebase. Again, that only works for when you extend it. If you clone a skill, you're on your own, just like copying an object in PeopleSoft. You're kind of on your own at that point. So we recommend using the extension process. Okay, future chatbots. So you saw what's out there currently. There is a roadmap, and this changes a little bit. And so I'm actually not 100% sure that all of these are still on the roadmap, but I did go out there and pull the current ones. I would recommend going out to Microsoft support, looking at planned features. You can also get access to that from the PeopleSoft info page. That's a great page. PeopleSoft info page is a great page. And at the bottom there, you can go to planned features and functionality. You can go in there and you can type, search for chatbot, and it'll tell you the chatbots that they have plans for delivering. That's not a commitment, and we'll see. And there's a couple that were out there previously that are no longer there. So that roadmap can change, but right now, here's some of the ones that they're looking at, whether it's HR personal details. The HR help desk is going to be automated on the HCM side. And the financial side, they want to do more with supplier portal, strategic sourcing. And I'm really excited about that because the self-service model for employees and managers is great. If we can extend that out in a self-service way, either through eSupplier portal or some of the stuff on the customer side and the financials, extend that to your suppliers and your customers. I think that's fantastic because how much time is being spent by your internal folks managing those relationships and managing simply an administrative function to answer questions for your suppliers or your customers. And so really pushing them into a chatbot framework, I think, is really the way to go here. It's simply an extension of everything that's already happening with Supplier Portal. All right, so let's talk a little bit about pricing. So there's two ways to leverage ODA. So this is the big thing. So with your PeopleSoft licensing, you get all of the PeopleSoft stuff with PUM and PeopleTools. There's no extra payments there on the PeopleSoft side, but you do need Oracle Digital Assistant, okay? And so there's two ways to license, or there's two main paths you can take. One is as a platform, which is the way we recommend, because it's basically you get access to then all of the chatbots if you buy the platform. You can do it either by per employee, which is $3 per employee per month. There's a minimum of $1,000 employees. So your get-in price is $3,000 a month. That's without discounting, right? Or $6 per named user. That's troublesome a little bit, right? If you name your users, right? Because you have to actually name people who are actually going to use this chatbot. It's a little bit tough. So obviously the employee model generally works really well. It's a one-time purchase, and then you get to use all those chatbots. Okay, so but those are the minimum pricing. If you look at the minimums and the per metric pricing, there's also another way to do it, which is just by per request. That might make sense for you. You're going to go down a different path for that. So whereas with the left side of the screen, you can go down and work with your Oracle app sales. On the right side, you're going to work with a tech rep who can also sell this to you, but they're going to sell it to you as a per request process. That if you're on the Oracle Cloud, you have a tenancy on Oracle Cloud, you can simply turn this on and you will start paying per request. And that's hefty, right? It's 250 minimum requests per hour. That's a lot, right? And so it's expensive, and you have to kind of consider if that's going to work for you. It might work for you if you have a ton of employees, but not a ton of requests. That might work for you. Traditionally, we see more people, and Oracle's certainly trying to move people more towards the employee model for sure. But you do have these two options for you, and I've simply listed the minimum pricing per month here for you. Now, I will say that there are discounts available. If you are interested in this, but you're kind of hesitating because of the price tag, I would certainly recommend come talk to us, talk to your rep with Oracle. There are discounts available, and they really want to be pushing this out for people. I would say, especially right now, as we're getting close to the year end for Oracle, if you're interested in this, this would be the time right now to try and lock some in. You're going to get the biggest discounts you're ever going to get in the next 3-4 weeks. So I would say go ahead and think about that. If you've ever done any kind of licensing work or anything with Oracle, they love to give discounts in May. Okay. All right. So it is expensive, and I know that people are just like, hey, we just want to try this out. I totally get it. And there are some options, some programs that come talk to me about that. We have some programs out there that are helping people kind of try stuff out. But I want you to kind of think about the cost considerations in a very strategic way. Think about it from an ROI perspective. So first off, you can quantify the time spent for these administrative folks of answering questions. If you can retool those people, or even at times you can eliminate the position, you actually have a quantitative benefit to actually reducing the amount of people that are sitting there simply to answer repetitive questions. Okay. Now, ODA can be licensed as a platform, as I mentioned, and if you do that, the more chatbots you deploy, the lower per request cost you're going to have to consider, and that means higher your ROI, right? That you're delivering value for your users, but your costs aren't necessarily directly proportionate to the amount of value you're getting out of those chatbots. Okay, so there's some quantitative analysis there to consider that, but I also want to have you consider the qualitative analysis. Once you consider that this is a customer satisfaction issue, your users, like I said, will start to expect more and more of this, leveraging technology. Why do I have to call someone? I have to talk to somebody. Can I just use sort of this conversational interface to just, this chatbot just to kind of get my stuff done? I can use it for all these other things, my bank and for all these different places. Can I just use a chatbot here with PeopleSoft? So there's a customer satisfaction that's going to be growing. If you don't do this, you're going to have to consider that. Your admin groups who are doing this, if you can retool them, you're really talking about a massive increase in productivity for those users or those core users or application who exist simply to support other people. If you can retool those people into more higher productivity or higher business value, there's going to be a key benefit to that. And then lastly, you can expand your reach and adoption to especially that younger crowd. Say, okay, I can actually get them using the system if I can roll this out with a digital interface. Lastly, I'll just point out, it's digitized, so you can use this to actually provide multilingual support, whereas you wouldn't necessarily want to have to hire people to support multiple languages, but you can do that in the chatbot very easily, and to minimize that need to go hire additional people to support multi-language. Okay, so our services, we do it all from advisory and just helping you from sort of just at the outset of kind of considering this and thinking it through, to the training. We've got a couple of training levels, kind of a 1 day, kind of a beginner. We've got a more of a deep dive with a 3-day course offering. We're of course helping people doing the deployment of this. So whether it's the integration with ODA, extending delivered chatbots, et cetera, or then just sort of maintaining, looking at its insights and analyzing how you're using it and optimizing that. Okay, so we offer all of that. I encourage you to go to that chatbot page or connect with me. My colleague Logesh, who you may have heard of as well, is working with me and really done a lot with respect to building all of this out. So, and we've done a lot with this. So really, in conclusion, chatbots are here. You can't really avoid it. You can't ignore it. You can really think about increasing both your user and your admin group satisfaction by doing this, increasing productivity of both. If you leverage delivered bots, make sure you personalize it with utterances and messaging, and I think that's it. So let me pause there. Let me stop sharing and see if there's any chat or questions that I can answer. All right, so I see somebody say they lost connection. Let's see. I'm hoping that I'm still broadcasting. I see somebody said they lost connection. I don't know if that's for everybody. If there's any questions, go ahead and put that into the Q&A or the chat. In the meantime, lastly, I'll just put out this poll and let you guys answer the question. If you click on the polls, go ahead and click on this and say, I'm just curious to know for any of you attendees, are you simply just here to learn today? Are you planning a chatbot deployment? If you have you already implemented chatbots? Do you need any assistance? So go ahead and click on, I think you can do multiple on this, so if you want to just go ahead and click on that, and I'll just put one in for myself that I'm going to need assistance. Submit that. Let's see if we have any responses here. All right, fantastic. So we've got a lot of people just learning today. Well, I hope you learned something. A couple of people that are planning a chatbot, and the one person, that's me, who needs assistance, which I need a lot of assistance. So anyway, I really appreciate it. I'm going to check if there's any questions that have popped up here. Okay, let's see here. Okay, so just some chat about one of the people who was possibly lost the connection. All right, and I see no other questions, so we are at our time. Certainly connect with me directly if you have any questions and want to talk about this at all. I hope you learned something today. Very happy that I was able to spend some time with you, and have a great rest of the conference. I can't remember if there's any sessions after this, but if there are, enjoy that and enjoy the rest of your day. I'm going to stop broadcast now. Thank you.